capital budget, and so we'll get started. We got some people here too. This would be number 7, 5. Is this the one we start with, Bill? Moved by number 5?
Yeah, we'll just go through the agenda.
Yeah, call to order.
Yeah.
Any particular interest, conflict of interest? Nope, none. And I haven't got my agenda right in front of me here. I got everything else. Too many papers.
Yeah.
Thanks. No motion to close into, go into close, motion to open. Minutes of previous meeting.
Mayor Bridge, we weren't going to approve the minutes of the previous
Right.
meeting until the budget
It's done.
bylaw comes to you, so.
Okay. Then I guess we're down to delegations.
You have a resolution to move into committee of the whole up there, I believe.
Oh, here it is. Number 7. Moved by Councillor Turton, second by Councillor Elliott, the Town of Council minutes convenes into the Committee of the Whole to conduct budget deliberations. All in favor? Carried. Okay. And we have a delegation. And John, did you want to?
I get to speak first, do I?
Yeah. Well,
Very special you are. Yeah, good.
maybe if you can get a chair, or yes, maybe right in there, John. We're on television, you know. It's not CBC or anything, but
Kind of scary.
but you know, a lot of people watch it, so it's kind of good that you're up there.
Anyway, I'm John Fuller. I'm from the 4th line of Minto. I work for Dennis Martin. I've been his manager for 20 years now. We're just, we hear stories about the 4th line not being repaid, so we're just here to voice our concerns over that. If you tell us that it's going to be repaid, we can get this over short and sweet and get back to work.
Well, I can tell you, John, it's in the budget this year to be tar and chip.
Yep.
And our Public Works Department kind of want to hope to leave it gravel for a little bit of time next year, just let it settle, because they did do quite a bit of construction on it to widen it and get it back to the original thing. Was there any time frame on that, Brian? Just
We're gonna have a look at it in late fall.
yeah.
And if everything is up to snuff, then we'll charge it.
The money.
If not, we'd like it moving in 2015 if it's not ready.
Okay, but
And it's settlement and grading of it. We wanna make sure it's in place before we charge it.
right. So that's the concern. So it's in the budget. The money's there to do it.
Possibility.
So thanks for coming out, John.
No, well,
Thanks for having me. I like these kind of meetings. There's only one other better meeting. This is when there's this one person there, because it gets over real quick.
and what I'd like to see, though, and I think I've talked to the Public Works on this, and I'd like to see before the spring, us to get together with the people on the 4th line to talk about, if we don't pave it, obviously, in the spring, we want to wait, about a maintenance program so that we at least have an idea. And Brian, you've had those talks about an idea of how much greater time will have to be spent there to make sure that it's kept, because we know it's a busy road from an agricultural standpoint. Dennis's farm's a large farm, but there's a lot of big equipment's got to be moving up and down there for the spring, do plantings and whatnot. So
Yeah.
we want it obviously passable.
And Terry
And Terry and Alan, they're all on that
Yeah,
road. I mean, but
sure. Yep.
I'd like to maybe have a bit of a meeting and have a bit of a plan so that everybody feels comfortable where we're going to be and what the timing is. If it passes the budget day, I don't know. I haven't talked to all the councillors, but I think there's been it's in the budget. It's one of the priorities that the roads have put in there. So
So if you stay here till probably 9 o'clock tonight and your presence is still here, you'll probably pass it.
now, to give you an idea, what we do at this meeting is we basically go over we haven't gone over the whole capital budget yet. So this is all comes with the arenas and everything else is in here. And we get to a point where there's the dollar amount that we need to spend and what the tax increase will be to do that spending. If everybody's in agreement after this meeting and that stays in there, you'll know, because this isn't passing the budget today. We still have to pass the budget at another date.
Right.
So, but usually after this meeting, if I'm right, Bill, after this meeting, it's pretty well set in stone. We've gone over the operating. So at that point in time, everybody at this table has had a good opportunity to question and know whether the budget's good or bad, or they think they can go with it, so,
Well, we feel better already.
yeah.
Yeah. And I can go home and tell my wife now that she can open the windows this spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been some wild stories out there, hasn't
But
there?
no, I mean, it's just what it is, right? But,
Well, you know, and having said that, I maybe take this opportunity, we just finished a total roads and needs study. We had to do an asset management plan for the government, to say where our conditions of all our facilities, our roads, our bridges, everything. And you have to put it all down in a plan. That's all been done. Going forward, I think there are going to have to be some public meetings as to where are we with our infrastructure? Do we need everything the way it is now, or do we look at different options? Or good point is, equipment's getting bigger and bigger. Some of our roads are very narrow. That's the understatement. Some of our side roads. So maybe where do we need to get traffic flow for farming too? We think of roads as traffic flow for cars going back and forth, but we also have equipment on those roads, so we have to get to know where they are, especially with the new cash cropping. I mean, farming's changed over the years. 30 years ago, cash cropping wasn't the way it is today. Now you've got large trucks that are going to the grain elevators and that type of thing. We have large trucks coming into the dairy operations. The milk trucks are large now. They weren't that big. I remember the cream cans and the cans. The trucks weren't as big as they are today. So
I don't remember that.
no. Well, I'm old. Now, the guy that's sitting there with his hand on his, he'll know that, because he was,
And just to add to what the mayor's saying, Brian can back me up, like, because of the work we've done on the road, the experts say you should let it settle for 2 to 5 years, and I don't think we're gonna wait 5 years, obviously. But I'm not a big advocate of gravel roads personally, so like you've got my support on, I personally like the asphalt. I think it's longer lasting, I think less maintenance, but the tar and chip, if it's done properly, and if the road is settled properly, you're gonna get the same wear out of a tar and chip as you do asphalt. So like I said, you got my support on the road. So if I could tar and chip every road in Minto, I would. I'd get rid of the gravel personally. And I know Brian doesn't agree with that, but
it's a
For
cost
sure,
thing.
yeah. No, and I was gonna say, like, there are a lot of horse and buggies
Yep.
but
As well.
I really didn't wanna go back to that time.
No,
In our road
no.
situation, so.
But Mary, do you have a question for John?
Through you, Mayor Bridge, I just wanted to ask John in the group if you have a clear understanding of why we did have to do the road.
Well, I understand there was a couple trucks roll over, and the grade of the road was maybe not up to what it was supposed to be, from what we've heard. The slope of the road, I guess, the S-bend there was a little bit to be desired, and there was a pothole just beside one of our fields that was a bit of a dip. So we understand it needed some up, but
Well, I think it was, Terry, you told me today, 32 years old, the last time it was done. So, and the slope was the concern, as Mary Lou was mentioning, and we get into that world of insurance now too, which we didn't have 30 years ago either, where every time anybody goes off a road, whether they're going too fast or whatever, it looks for an opportunity to sue the town because we didn't have due diligence, maybe we didn't have,
Right.
the roads plowed or the roads whatever, so. Yeah, I think, Terry, yeah. If you want to go up, Terry, to,
thanks, guys.
yeah, thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
give him the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing that is missing. Martins do host a sale of livestock every year, and coming down our road on a gravel road does not leave a good impression of our municipality. And first impressions are very important. So those are one of the things that I look at. Second thing is the length of time before it is hardtopped. I'm pretty sure the 8th concession from the county road to the first side road was chewed up and chipped and tarred within a month. And it seems to be still holding up very well. So 2 to 5 years, Rick, I find a little unacceptable.
yeah, well, that's not me saying that.
I'm just responding to what you said.
Yeah,
All right.
I think that the plan is to do it obviously next year, and we have to deal based on that. Hopefully it'll be settled. I assume it might be. And I think, one other thing, Terry, when you had a quick discussion before, and if we do anything in the if I would be able to turn the clock back, I think we should have maybe got everybody together and explained it again to you guys before we had to do it. But again, it was identified as one of our top needs, I believe, in our road study that we just completed. And we wanted to get it done in the fall so that we'd have a chance for it to settle so that we could do something with it in this year.
Yeah, George and I were talking before, when we, as a council or a municipality, when we do this in the future, I think it's important that you consult the modern day farmer, what his needs are as far as roads and bridges, and then see if we have the money to accommodate those needs.
Yeah. Yes.
Kind of a comment, I think a lot of years ago, probably before amalgamation, the roads in Minto were upgraded and kept pretty good. And at that time, there was pretty good grants available for paving and availability for the use of government money to pave roads. And at that time, the governments or our municipal governments took advantage of that and managed to upgrade all the roads. Those are all gone away a lot. So that's why it makes it more and more difficult each time we talk about building a road to do it, because we have to do it with full taxpayers' money now, municipally. So that's kind of the reason why, if you think things have deteriorated, it's not really the fault of the municipality, it's the affordability of it.
I agree with that, Ron, but it doesn't change the
Yep.
need.
That's right, absolutely.
No, and I totally agree, and Ron's a good point. That's why we can continue to go to AMO and continue to go to the big groups to say, some of this gas tax money, it all can't go to Toronto for transit. We gotta have some back to do our roads, and we'll keep working on that.
Yep.
Do what we can. All right, thanks, gentlemen. You can stick around if you want. Okay. Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming.
Mayor Bridge, just to be clear then, we have that in the budget and that it'll be evaluated in the summer, fall
Yep.
for a fall project.
That's right.
And if not, it'll be next year.
I think that was actually stated in the budget
Yep,
document.
yep.
Okay. All right, introduction. I need to introduce you guys? There's nobody else here. This feels like a real quiet little meeting now. Even the press. Okay,
Mayor Bridge, if there's no further introductions, then we'll go right into our presentation. It'll be very brief, and we'll get right into having the department heads come up
Yep.
on their capital budgets. Got our quotes for you, just a reminder of what they were back when we first met, November. This is our agenda for today, so we're already ahead of schedule, I think. One issue we should put our mind to today is whether we want to have a public open house like we did last year. I would recommend that you do that. I think that was a good step, although it wasn't a huge attendance. I think it's always nice to give people one last look at things,
Yep.
if they've been following along or whatever. So we can work on scheduling that in March if you wish. This is a breakdown of our tax dollars. The red figures are where we will be in 2014 if the budget goes generally as we've recommended it to you. What you see is movement of the town into the education portion of the tax rate. So county stays about stable. Our share of the budget, or the tax dollar, becomes 39, whereas education is 14. And just a reminder that 40,000 is about 1% increase.
Yep.
There's a general spread of where your dollars go. Public Works, the largest portion, and then the others. Between fire, Public Works, and recreation, that's a good chunk. Just a reminder that the November 26 minutes, they remain draft until the final budget approval, as will these minutes. So we don't have a resolution for you to adopt them or anything at this point in time. That's done purposely so that if there's changes or amendments, then they can be made.
I don't need that one, that's what you're saying.
No.
That's confusing.
Sorry. Since the November 26th meeting, we've increased the people and property budget recommended to you by $10,000, and you should have a summary sheet and what came to you on Monday with that on there. We've decreased the roads admin budget by reducing the contribution to reserves from $40,000 to $20,000. And we've decreased the roads maintenance budget by $6,000 net because we've included the $14,000 leaf pickup that you had talked about and referred to budget at a previous meeting. And we removed the traffic counts budget in the operating and put it in the capital. So we would do that in a slightly different way. And then there's a decrease in cemeteries. We had 5,000 in the operating. We've put that into taken that out of the cemeteries and moved that into capital with 20,000 for that work.
Questions?
That 5,000 from cemeteries, is that coming out of grass cutting?
No, it was in there for mapping, new money.
Straight mapping?
Right.
That's what I just want to clarify. Okay, thanks.
So the net change of that is, roughly $30,000 or so. Less in the operating side. Under our payment policy.
Sorry, I just had a question regards to the leaf pickup. That's in the budget now. Did we actually pass purchasing or,
We're not purchasing.
offering leaf pickup at the road?
If you don't want that in there, then that would be the time to say, pull that out. Council did not pass it, you referred it to here, so we've put it in. If you don't want it in, then you need a motion to take it out.
Right now, then, to take it out?
You can
Or
do
when
that
do
if
that?
you wish. So we have a motion to not do roadside leaf pickup.
Did we want to talk about, it's not just the total extra service. What was the percentage? And I can't remember this now, and I have to go back and think. Brian, there was a reason from a maintenance standpoint we thought this was good, because what we were doing.
I don't think that staff was recommending that we do it. We were outlining the costs to
Yeah.
do it if you wanted to
But there
do
was
it.
something that you said, I thought in the report,
The leaves get in the.
that we have to do some other things, and I don't know, what's the difference between us doing the 14 and what we save on sucking out all the, out of the storm sewers?
And everybody raking it for the curbs.
Like, are we talking a true 14, or are we talking like 6 that would have normally gone to operations because you had to do something else?
So just, for using a backhaul truck, you're talking probably around just between $4,000 or $5,000
A year?
a year.
Would this eliminate that? Okay, all right, that's why I just want to get a clarification there, because I remember there was something about servicing.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the way they get it done. Spring and fall.
That's 14s for twice a year.
No.
Catch basins are twice a year, but it still won't eliminate catch basin. Okay. Right.
The concern I have, how do we stop people from raking their leaves to the curb? I would say more than 50% of the people don't use our compost and don't use our facilities that we offer for them. We just rake it right to the curb, and we got piles and piles of leaves sitting on the curb, and they sit there until it rains. And sometimes it blows. Somebody complains, then we have to come along and pick it up anyway. I believe we pick it up.
We don't pick it up, and ends up in the street, in the gutter, and that's where the backhaul truck is, or
What?
deep in the street.
I certainly remember somebody complaining that the water wasn't getting to and our trucks had to come down and shovel them, physically shovel them and go back to the truck.
Main Street falling.
And a side street too. I was involved, I was the one that got the phone call. And we had flood on that street because the water couldn't get down the drains because of all the leaves. Again, it comes down to, we don't have the ability to pick up those leaves. Am I correct? We don't have the ability to pick up those leaves. And we do have a bylaw to say that, I believe we have a bylaw to say we shouldn't rake our leaves to the, am I correct about that? There's a bylaw, so nothing says that we
No, there's nothing saying that you can't rake them
should have done it.
to the road, but it is an offense in the Highway Traffic Act to physically rake them onto the road.
Okay, so they're being raked. So-
The OPP would have to
so
deal
in
with that.
fact, if we don't do this, and we continue to have the problem of water and flooding in our streets, and leaves going down in our sewers and, sending men out to shovel it because we got that problem, who enforces the bylaw? Who enforces the highway traffic act?
The OPP do.
And probably that's not gonna happen.
You'd have to talk to them.
So in fact, we're in a situation where either we're gonna leave the town in a mess, have our guys shovel it on physically, or do that.
One thing we could look at would be passing a bylaw prohibiting people from raking it onto municipal property. That would include property from the physical property line to the curb itself, so in the boulevard.
For example.
Yeah, and we could look at doing something like that with set fines in place for it.
And then who would be the person that would enforce those fines?
That would be me.
That would be you.
Yep.
Okay, so that would be a counter to this, if we use it, we have to do something.
It's definitely a venue we can look at.
At least in Palmerston, I've seen it in Harrison too, where you see the street flooded because the water can't get away. Something has to be done.
Through you, your worship, I'm just thinking, this is a one-time deal though, if you're gonna do this leaf pickup. So I think the problem here is to get everybody together on the same day to rake everything to the curb, and then we need to pick it up that day or the next day. Now, I personally can't see
You're right.
that going, you know, I'm not.
You're right, you're right.
I'm not trying to,
You're
take ear to
absolutely
ears,
right.
Ron, I'm just saying,
Absolutely
like, you're gonna get more than one flood. If it's flooding one day, like, not everybody's gonna rake the leaves up on one given day. That's what I'm saying. So you're gonna end up doing this a half a dozen times.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what is the fix? I just can't see spending the money on something that I don't think we have any control on.
We could control if we have a bylaw in place. I would suggest that if we don't do this, if our community decides not to move in that area, then we put a bylaw in place and be a little more stringent on it, so we can ask people not to do that.
I'm good. Anybody else?
Yeah, thanks,
Okay,
Mayor Breach.
and then Terry?
Brian, how serious is the water flooding? I mean, how, honestly? Depending on how much water comes out of the sky, but like, how often have you been called out because of flooding on a street?
Since I've been here, only
Yeah.
once that I know of. We've had a couple catch basins that have been plugged up just prior to us going out to suck them out, but
So
one
you're-
street flooding that I know of, and I think the other was caused by snow not too long ago.
And how many people, how many complaints have we heard of leaves?
Ask me.
Ron gets more than,
37.
I say 36.
Okay.
36?
I don't know how many, but I get a lot of complaints. And I certainly get a lot of complaints, and I see it firsthand, so, you know.
Okay, well, just simple question.
Carry them, Ron?
I'm just wondering maybe if we could get some idea this coming year, what our costs may be related to leaves, and then it become a budget, potential budget item for next year. I'm not in favor of just throwing $14,000 at what may be a problem. If we could just spend a little more time, or have our staff watching and seeing and recording or making some notes as to what the potential cost is. And, I mean, if it's costing us $20,000 in time and labor, then that $14,000 is well spent. If it's costing us 3 or 4, then maybe the way we're doing it is adequate. So that would be my recommendation.
Ron, and then Mary Lee.
Yeah, and I concur, and the other thing that I truly believe we need to do is a publicity campaign to make citizens responsible and to do what they should be doing in the first flipping place, and that is getting their leaves together and taking them to a bloody compost area, and let's stop putting all the responsibility on the council. Let's educate our public so that they take responsibility and what they're accountable for, and that's take their leaves to a central dumping area.
And that was more or less my comment, other than maybe to add that our September final billing on our tax bill maybe could include a listing of the compost areas, and once again, this
That's
strong
right.
encouragement there will not be leaf pickup. Please take them to the following locations. It's free of charge.
Okay, good discussion.
So for next year, I'll take pictures.
Okay. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, but I think one of our major concerns for that one flooding situation in Palmerston was the high school was actually putting the leaves.
Raking leaves out.
And
from-
we've talked to the maintenance people there, Ron, and we can get on them pretty quickly. It's unfortunate, but my concern was, I thought, until you explained it to me, we're still gonna have to do the other stuff anyways.
We're still gonna have to do the catch
So
basins.
this isn't replacing, the 14's not gonna, and I kind of agree with some of the counselors saying, how do you maybe do it twice a year, or like twice, but how are you gonna get everybody, the leaves come down at different times, at different places, it's really hard.
Yeah.
I mean, some trees, leaves come down before other trees, and, you know.
And we advertise
Some people are
too.
gonna rake every day,
Yeah.
otherwise maybe rake once in the fall, right?
So I think a good education program would help, and maybe if we've got some people that are disabilities or whatever, somebody's doing them for them, we'll find out or whatever, but I'm kind of tend to go on the same basis.
I also
And
think we need a bylaw in place. That's the best lesson learner of all.
Can we go back to, and maybe take that back to committee and look at it, because there's two things about the bylaw. One, we don't want to have a bylaw that's not enforceable, Terry, and we have to look at the cost of enforcing it. You know, like, do we have to go to, if we find somebody, they have a right to take us to court on it and all that stuff?
Yeah, it's the same deal as any other ticket.
So within reason, I mean, I'm fine with the bylaw, but I just want to make sure it makes sense to do the bylaw before we try to do education first. There already is the traffic thing. If we have a real bad situation, we can certainly talk to OPP, and that's a one-off. We can get them to say, you know, you're impeding traffic.
So can we stroke that 14 out of there for now?
Vote on the motion. We have the motion. It's already here. All in favor of the
The
motion?
motion is to eliminate the.
To eliminate it, I believe, was the motion? Yeah, okay. All opposed? Okay. All right, that's done. Let's say it's 14,000.
Thank you, Mayor Bridge. Next point in the presentation is we are to provide a report to you on the cost of living increase as it might pertain to the grid, overall grid for the town salary structure. The October CPI was 0.9%. If your inclination is to approve a 0.9% increase for the overall grid, that would add $20,000. We have not put that in to the budget, and if you're prepared to do that, it would require a motion to that effect. Other increases generally running 1 to 2%, and there are others that are quite a bit more, but that's in the policing side of things. So again, if you were interested in that sometime today, we would need a motion or sometime between now and the budget being finally approved. In terms of the overall budget as it stands, budget to budget, you have a summary sheet that we provided to you in your package. It shows the changes that we had recommended to you in red. That's the big chart, big long chart. We are now, in terms of operating, only under 3%. Sorry, in terms of capital and operating, the budget is under 3%. For a homeowner with a $190,000 home, that's roughly $23 per year, just on the town side alone. And when we blend in the county and education, the increase would be less than 3%. And when you get into assessment, the treasurer can have an even better figure than that for you later on. But that's roughly where you are. Then each of the capital, in your capital tab, you should have a department summary sheet by project. It shows in red the 2014 recommended projects. Black is in 2013, and down below in your department tab, you'll see how that's funded, and the treasurer can give you some more information on that when you get into each section. We are looking at about 5.5 million in capital this year. That's a similar amount to what you had in the budget last year. And between 2012 and 2017, we're averaging about 4 million per year. Sorry, in the last 3 years, we're averaging about 4 million per year in capital being done. And that slide shows you where it's being spent. Roads and streetlights, 1.75, sewer and water, 2.5, fire and protection, 3.35 million, cemeteries, 30,000, administration, 55,000, recreation, 300,000, building, 5,000, economic development, 430. And we'll go into the details of that shortly. There's a statement of your reserves and debt. Debt is in red, freight color for that. You can see how that's trended downwards over your term. Reserves are better than our debt in terms of overall, and I think that's the position the treasurer and I would certainly like us to see. Just to mention a few capital projects, not to generate discussion now, but just to give you some foresight into what's coming. 650,000 to replace the water main meters, or install water meters in Harrison and Clifford. The Forest Main project under the Build Canada Fund, 550,000 in Harrison. 16th line culvert, 650,000. That's approved in the MIII. We've already got the first amount of that dollars. Third line culvert also into the second round of that MIII, 210,000. 180,000 to do a double surface treatment or tar and chip on the fourth line, which we've discussed. 59,000 in street lights near TG Minto. 105,000 for Ann Street, Park to Nelson. That would service some more of the lots that would be available for sale out in Clifford. 220,000 for the fire department tanker. That's the first of 3 to come. 20,000 for cemetery mapping, which is very, very important. We want to get a handle on where things are in a more accurate fashion. 340,000 for expansion of the Harrison and Palmerston industrial parks, which is a good problem to have. 301,000 in recreation includes 40,000 for the Palmerston parking lot at the arena, 41,000 for Harrison Town Hall Theater, and a washroom at Lions Park, 15,000 among other projects. So just looking back over your 4 budgets as a team, you've done about $14 million in capital work. If we successfully implement this year's budget, you've installed water meters. We'll have installed water meters in all 4 urban water serviced areas. The Wayton Road will have been completed. Quite a lot of work in recreation in Clifford. Several new culverts and bridges done. You've had upgrades to your water system. You've done the addition to the Harrison Fire Hall, and quite a number of other things have been accomplished. So I think that's something to be certainly proud of in terms of what's been done with the money that has been raised. The county budget, we're told, is coming in around 2.2, and it is to be finalized with the assessment. So that's the kind of detail that the treasurers get into. And also the education rate is slightly below the 2013. So on the overall, we'll benefit to that. And I'll let Gordon talk about that because that's fairly detailed. Again, 5.5 million in capital, $43,000 more out of tax for capital than last year. So, and finally, just to thank Gordon and all the departments for their work, department heads for all their work on this budget. I think it's a good process, and I'm looking forward to getting your comments on it.
Yeah, Councilor Faulkner. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, good job, guys. Just to clarify, and I know this is on TV, and there's a lot of people have always asked this. We talk about the county budget coming in just under 3%, and yet up there it says county budget 2.2%, right, to be finalized. Maybe explain the difference, just so that people out there know.
Refer that to the mayor in his role on the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Yeah, when you said, where'd you get 3% from?
Well, that's,
I think we're getting into the issue of blended rates versus our budget versus others.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
And
I think that needs explaining.
And I guess what I'll say, the 2.2% and the way the county has come out with it, on $100,000 assessment, so if you had a $100,000 house, just look at that amount, that's not normal, but on $100,000, the county taxes on that would be running around $13.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Increase. That's what you're looking at, increase. I kind of like, Gordon and I had this great discussion. Percentages are all weird and wonderful, but it comes down to the bottom line. I think it comes down to people, homeowners and tax people want to know what's it going up. And everybody's going to be a little different, but if you have a $200,000 assessed house, then you know that $26 more for county next year.
I understand that, your worship, it just, I know the term that confuses people out there is blended versus,
Yeah.
And I don't think we're going to try to do a blend
No,
this year.
and it gets more complicated too, because the county, of course, is setting at the county level, but there's 7 municipalities with different rates of assessment growth. So as like Bill referred to, our assessment growth, last year was a phase-in. We had a 6% increase, but you divide that by 4, it's 1.5 per year. So your $100,000 in assessment is theoretically going to 101,500. In Minto, if you live in Porcelance or Center Wellington, where it's growing faster, your 100 may be 107 or 110 or something too. But the county, of course, is setting overall on their assessment. And I believe it's passed the committee, and it probably will be the February meeting before.
No, January.
It's going to be passed in January, yeah.
Next Thursday.
And then you've got things like tax ratios, which Minto is impacted by, but the county has the authority. In the past few years, they haven't made major changes, but they have made minor changes. And again, probably won't affect the residents too much. It may affect commercial, may affect industrial. So this is kind of the best we have as of today, given that it's January.
And I, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I think what you're saying, Ron, is people say, oh, the county's not 3% and ours is not 3%. Well, that 6% is what everybody
That's right, you don't add them.
And I think that's why I'd like, and Gordon and I have had some discussions, and Mary Lou talked about it too, it'd be nice to get to that where, it's hard, but to get to where you could say on 100,000 assessment, dollars worth of assessment, there's what your actual dollars will be.
Right, and the education rates, they just came down,
they just came
not
down.
even 48 hours ago. Pleasantly, we have a fair decrease in residential rates. In industrial and commercial, it's a very minor change, so again, it's.
So it might be nice to say on a $100,000 or $200,000 house or whatever, or $100,000 assessment between the county, ourselves, and education, there's your actual dollars.
Yeah.
To me, that makes sense.
that makes sense.
Last year, we tried to do this blend thing, and
Totally.
they weren't, and nobody could understand it, and
And then it was advertised that we went up 5%.
Yeah, and which was true technically, but not on a dollar per dollar basis, so.
Our taxpayers didn't pay an
Yeah.
extra.
That's right.
That's
So
right.
I think that's what I'd like to see. Does everybody think that would be good if we could come to that?
Basis of my point.
By the time we pass the budget, if we could have a sort of a little bit of a synopsis, is that doable?
Yeah, well, come up with like the usual,
Yep.
by that time, the county's passed
Should have
and they're
its- yeah.
passed, and then we can kind of look at it. And we do have figures for assessment. Assessment changes are a lot more moderate in this cycle. Last time, we had 24%, so we had 6% a
Yeah,
year.
that's
This
right.
time, it's 6% over 4, so it has less of an effect.
And you remember when we had our open house, a lot of people came upset, but as it turned out, it was more to be upset about the fact that their assessment went up, which was an impact situation, which is nothing we could really do about it other than set our rates, right? So,
Yeah, like the mayor and I have been talking, at present, again, like you can do a lot with numbers, but if you take your theoretical $100,000 and it stayed at 100, the Minto portion's down 85 cents. Yeah, but that's really not that meaningful a figure.
yeah, so I think what we're looking at today, Bill, and is the percentage of increase over last year's budget to this year's budget on a percentage
And that's
is
around
under the
3.
3. But that doesn't necessarily work out to actual dollars and numbers. So when we look at this, look at it critically and whatever, and when the department heads come up with whatever you think. And the other thing that some of this stuff is tax dollars and some of it's reserves. So they'll tell you if you want to get rid of something here, that's not going to affect your overall percentage increase because it was coming out of a reserve. So that's another thing to think about. So that's why I think we go through the process. I'm pretty comfortable with what we got, but we'll see. Now we got 14 more.
So Mayor Bridge, if we could start in the capital tab, it starts with facilities.
Yep.
Al Carr will come up and present his.
And if you notice, Al's in purple and I'm in purple, and did anybody not get the purple memo?
Just one question, I could, Bill, That 105,000 on Ann Street, was that money we spent or money we're going to spend? on-
That's proposed in the budget, yep.
That we'll, Bill, hopefully Ron go through that on an individual
Yeah,
basis.
yeah, I was
Yep.
just a little bit confused on that, so I wanted to ask. Okay. Sorry for me to get confused.
You're up, Al. First should be facilities,
Did we want to just go through this item by item,
or just want to ask if
or
anybody's
just
got any,
ask questions?
anybody got a, yeah, just want to ask questions on.
Yeah, it'd be easiest, Al, hopefully everybody can look at it.
Yep.
Maybe
Unless you
Al,
go through it
Al,
again
any-
with us.
maybe some highlights of what you think might be, that might be something that somebody might ask. Maybe you've got some highlights, something that you're surprising people with, or that you worked harder at.
I hope not.
Okay.
I think we could just open it to questions.
Okay.
Can I ask what the project is for the Harrison Town Hall accessibility?
Harrison Town Hall, yes, we were hoping to cut that number back. That was for washrooms.
It is what?
And we're hoping to cut that back and just try to modify the existing. However, we did change, we'll call them building managers. Mr. Smith has stepped down, and Richard, I'm not gonna try the last name.
John Smith.
Yes, he stepped in, and he feels pretty adamant that we should attempt to do a renovation on that facility. We did meet with Mark Harding with Heritage Builders. Councillor Elliott, the chair of the Recreation Committee, came out as well, and Richard. And I think for the people that have been to the theater and seen the ladies' washroom in particular, it is a very, very small. It's not very
So how do you get the
accommodating.
room to put in accessible washrooms?
The only way we can do it is to actually go through walls of the safe and the old jail cells in the building. It's gonna have to be the plumbing would have to be redone, the floor would have to be redone, and there'd be a little bit of a hallway, and the washrooms would be long and narrow. This renovation would also include an enlargement of the men's washroom. The area would be gutted and rebuilt.
And that's what this budget includes? Or
Yes.
no? Okay.
Yes, that's the $41,000 figure, yes.
And that comes out of reserves right now. I think that one, I asked that. So if we take anything out of it, Mary Lou, it doesn't affect your overall budget.
That's right. At present, we have it coming out of
Yeah.
reserves.
I think Terry, do you have?
Yeah, this question is probably better for Gord than for Al. It's, with respect to the Clifford Rotary Park, I'm just wondering, how much have we invested there now? I see we're doing another 20,000. What are we at approximately?
Gosh, I think we're about, yeah, for you, yeah.
Yeah,
I can remember the funding, 54,450 for the CIIF, and we got 22,000 from the Rotary Club. I'm thinking it's around 90, but I bet Al has a lot better breakdown. And it kind of, I'm looking at it as one. I was trying to divide it up between soccer and baseball, and can't really do it. It's all one. I think Al's got the figure.
Maybe this may not be the right thing to say, or it could turn into a long-winded conversation, Deputy Mayor Fisk. I do have a copy of the bills that have come across the table, dating back to 2012, revenues that have come in. I can provide this to you, if you would like me to pass it around.
I'd like to know, I believe we got 160,000 for the Tividale Ballpark.
178.
Okay,
and
and that was
change.
to go to this project, basically, was it not?
Well, a portion of it is to my understanding.
Well, I think what we wanted to do, we were funding it with the idea that when we sell the Clifford ball diamonds, and that would go back out of there. So I think what Al's tried to do is break down what so far we put into the park itself. Now, like there's $30,000 we bought the money for the land down there
Yes.
that went to the Rotary Club, and the Rotary Club has given that back by putting the washrooms in.
Okay.
So that's kind of where it gets a little complicated.
Total expenses to this point are $228,000.
That's the expenses of it, that's not but we've had donations and stuff too, though, correct?
We've had some grant money, the
Yeah.
sale of Tiviadale Park, and we do have the sale of the Ball Diamond to come.
So it's not $220,000 out of our pocket, per se.
That's correct. Those are that's
Yeah.
expenses.
Expenses, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I wouldn't mind seeing that afterwards, if you don't mind.
I can provide it to you right now if you
No.
wish.
No,
Okay.
I think probably it makes sense to maybe do a report and give it to all council, just to give a bit of an idea of where we're at, and maybe have that looked at, because hearing 228,000, but I think Councilor Hamlin just said, we've got, there was a $54,000.
Before you grab that,
Bed dev, yeah. Right. In that 228, is that any money for the washrooms? See, that's the
Yes.
washrooms. See,
That's
it's just a little confusing, because that's the washrooms that we bought $30,000 worth of land from the Rotary Club, and they put how much into the washrooms?
16.2.
16.2, as well as, so they're putting more money in. So that 30,000 we gave to them has almost come back into the park. So it's a little just confusing to say 228.
I think the doctor.
It
what the
could be-
doctor's
it
looking
could be
for
a
is
long
what we put in
conversation.
I think what the doctor's
Yeah,
asking is.
well, we funded
We
it.
got in it as
Yeah.
our cash, is what we have.
Oh, as our cash, is that
Yeah.
fine
Yeah.
as it sits right now, and this does not count the last part of the grant. Yes. We should be close to $5,000 to the good.
Yeah.
That's what we wanted to hear.
But I think it'd be nice to have that report, Terry. I
Yeah.
totally agree. And
Would that be okay if
Yeah.
that was emailed?
or we can have it for the next, we can have it for,
Next council.
email it? Okay, email it.
I could email the
Sure.
breakdown out.
Yeah.
I would appreciate it if our treasurer Gord's been kind of busy this last little while. I would appreciate it if he could review the numbers,
Yeah.
just
Good. Good. I'm sorry, now, David, you're next.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Bridge. Just a couple of questions, Al. The $10,000 for the roof repairs under Hairston, is there a roof that you're looking at, or is that just?
Well, there's been some issues over at the curling club,
Okay.
and to be honest, I'm not 100% convinced it is a roof. I
Mhm.
think it may have to do with
Thank you.
some equipment.
The second one then is the Palmerston parking lot grind and coat.
Yes.
That's at the arena, the whole parking lot, or are we just doing
No,
sections?
that's probably about a third of,
Third.
if you envision the front of the community center,
I can.
it would be the width of the parking lot, about a third of the way out is starting to deteriorate badly.
So when you talk about grind and coat, we're gonna grind it, reuse it, and put some extra material in, so it's gonna, and put that all back on.
It would be ground down, and there would be a skim coat of asphalt put over top.
Good. Any other questions on the? Okay.
Through you, Mayor Bridge, when we get to confirmed funding sources, quite often we see this unexpended capital funding. Is that basically what was left over from the previous budget?
Okay, I'll take this opportunity to mention that one now.
Yeah.
That is, you got it right, but it's not just the previous budgets, it's all the budgets since 1999. It's all the unexpended capital. And the risk that I always say is, that's where we are today, but more bills keep coming in, and not too much on recreation, but some of the other projects, there's some unknowns there, so we may not have as much as what we think. But with recreation, I'm pretty confident, so we've got that roughly 100,000 budgeted or funded from previous years that we can carry over to spend this year.
So that would be different than reserves then?
Yes, that's different from reserves.
And if you find out you don't have as much unexpended, then the balance comes out of reserves, is that correct?
Yeah, as long as there is enough in the reserves. And
correct.
again, not so concerned about this budget, but there's a few of them that's a risk. Like one of them in particular is how we spend our federal gas tax. So I'm hoping that we got some to carry over, but there's a couple of bills out there that are hanging out and they're coming in. And, you know, Mayor and I just signed a whole bunch of checks that related to December just this morning, so that's the thing. And we have a particular reserve, the tax stabilization reserve. If I have to drain that, it leaves less flexibility, so that's what, like, that should be sorted out by the time we actually pass the budget, but that's it. So our unexpended is what we're relying on heavily for this budget, for sure.
So it could go either way, Gordon.
Really?
And it just, is something I've been saying for 4 years, I'm gonna say it again. And I'd really like to see a purchase order system be put in place, and I'd like to see us working towards that.
We've made baby steps, okay, so,
Okay.
the Public Works Department, does have purchase orders, and they're using them more now. Yeah, so it's one of those things that it hopefully will get more, entrenched across other departments too, but, so we've started, I thought, well, we've got to see that we're doing something, and we have started, and Jackie bundles them with her packing slips and stuff like that too.
But then,
Yeah.
the final process would be to look at those outstanding purchase orders, and it would give us a better idea of
Yeah.
what is yet to come.
You've got that too, and then you've also got, on some of the large ones, you've got your holdbacks payable,
Right.
and that's to be calculated yet, and some of that'll be up and some will be down, and, yeah, so you do have all these kind of things, for sure.
I agree with what Councillor Caldwell said, and that's where that comes in real handy. Although I do give you credit, Gord, that I remember the first budget we had, we were really guessing out there, and I think that we're a lot further ahead of making sure some of our big invoices, we go after the people, we give them notice, like, get them in, we gotta know about them. You can't do a budget without knowing that, and I keep putting pressure on Gord and his staff to move the budget closer to the beginning of the year, because I really think it's important that we get a budget in place, not in May, but the hard part is that whole thing. So if we can move towards that, I would certainly back Mary Lou, or Councillor Caldwell's concerns. If you can get to that across the board, we certainly know better.
I just couldn't bear to put that on the treasurer when he was doing tangible capital asset management this year.
Last year was a big year, yeah, I agree with
I
that.
think he'd
But that
see-
could be a project that I think we could be looking at
And
going
there's
in.
a cost associated with that, and that cost
Yep.
will, need to be in the budget, administrative budget. Is your software even able to produce?
No, so,
Things like that, yeah.
yeah. So I think we take some breathing room, but work hard at it, and maybe that's something that the next council could look at. Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sorry.
Just, more for your benefit, Al, and I see that we talked about that $10,000 for a roof. There's been some concerns that we're doing nothing about it. We can assure the people that we know there has been problems with the water, and we have worked towards it. It's not necessarily a fault of what's been done and what's been done in the past, but what you're looking for the future. Sort of give them an update on what you think about that roof supposedly problems.
Since we've encountered the problem, we've been working with the curling club executive, in particular the president and the head ice maker.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. Anything else on else? Okay, thanks, Al.
Thanks, Al. Thanks, Al. Great job.
The next is fire and emergency.
Fire emergency, well, I haven't got that next. Yes, I do. Oh, I do. You want to do the same format? Sure. It'll work pretty good. Everybody wants the same format, just identify.
Well, and I'm just assuming, your worship, when I see a figure in there, that this is what has to be done. It's not like a wish list or anything, is it? This is bare bones coming out of each department, is that correct?
Correct, yeah. This is,
No, I agree. I mean, the staff have been working hard, all the departments, on trying to get their budget reasonable and down. I think these are true reflective figures. That doesn't mean if we as a council think there's something that has to be moved off, or moved to the future, or whatever, we can't make those decisions. But there are things that all the department heads have had to cut back on their initial wish list, for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm just speaking for fire, this is bare bones what we have in here. The equipment that you see above the 11 and the smaller figures are just equipment that we need, that we buy routinely every year. Bunker gear, boots, that kind of thing. So that's in those figures. And the tanker truck's part of our 25-year truck plan that we've had in there. All of our tankers are over 20 years old now, so we have 4 of them, so we're slowly going to replace them over the next few years. So it's identified in there, and it's been put in reserves, and this is the first one to come up on our 25-year truck plan. So
Yeah, and that's in the reserves. That isn't out of taxes at this point. That's reserves. That's from previous.
we borrow from our truck reserve to
Right.
finance but there is still enough in there that for this truck, it was part of the plan to get that purchase. So.
Yeah.
Through you, Mayor Bridge. Just under comments there, referring again to the borrowing of funds from the equipment reserve to fund the addition. Are those to be paid back, or is that money just gone?
No,
That'll
it's going to be paid back. This is our last year for the debenture of a fire truck that was done in 2004. So right now, you can see we put $155,000 into reserves. So I think that's about a $50-some thousand debenture payment we have, which I'm hoping to then, after this year, that'll just stay as a line item, but just to be amalgamated with the reserve. So our reserve will be $210,000 every year. So our budget will stay the same. It's just we'll take that line and add it to our reserves, and that's how we're going to pay ourselves back to catch up to where we were in the 25-year truck plan. So that was all calculated in last year.
What was the figure that was borrowed then from the equipment? Truck fund?
From our equipment,
If you remember, I think about 14 or 15 months ago, we kind of brought forward, no, you may not remember, well, back then, trust me. So Chris and I presented a program when we were talking about the Harrison Fire Hall addition, and it was hard to nail down, because I think that one started at 350 and went up to 800, and we said, how are we going to pay for this? And we said, well, here's what we can do. We can really take the vehicle reserves, put them into the building reserves, and I think that was, say, 2012. By 2015, we would have the building built and that truck purchased. So carrying over at the end of 2014, we're going to have 30,000 opposite of unexpended, unfinanced. So we'll have the truck and we'll have the building, but we'll still have like $30,000 that theoretically we should allocate and fund in 2015, and that's what we'll do with those reserves. And hopefully the building part will be done, and the trucks are over a long term. So that's where that comes from.
Ron and then Ron.
just to follow up on that quickly, we did move the truck back a year so that financing plan would work. So it was originally in the original plan to be bought last year, but we just bumped it up a year to accommodate the renovations and all that, so that would all work out through our reserve process. Sorry.
Chief, you talked about 4 tanker trucks, and this is one that's one to replace. With technology and the changing fire calls and whatnot, is there a needs assessment ever done to identify whether we need 4 or 3 or a different type of technology period other than a tanker truck? That's just I always struggle with that one.
There's changing technology all the time. What our equipment committee has done is looked at, we have the Superior Tanker Shuttle where we exercise how much water we can shuttle and how much we're certified at. So that tells us, I use that as a good gauge to see what we need for trucks and stuff like that to shuttle water. What this truck's going to do is it's replacing 2 existing rescues. So as we get this truck, there's no more rescue vans, as we call them, in the truck, and because this will be a truck that's shuttling water, it can also shuttle people, which was part of our long-term goal. Is this truck will shuttle the people that will phase out those rescue vans, so we'll be able to get rid of those. And also what we're looking at through the equipment committee and the chiefs is by putting a small pump on it, like a 540 gallon per minute pump, this will take the place of backup pumper trucks sitting there too. So we, instead of having a mainline pumper and a backup one that might be 20, 25, 30 years old, having a smaller pump on this one will take the role of a backup one possibly too. So we're looking at all those different types of scenarios and all those type of things to make sure that our fleet is as lean as possible, but we'll still get the job done. So we are looking at that a lot.
Because I guess, Chris, this would be like, is it the one in Clifford? Most of the council have been in that one. It's six-seater, right? Is it a six-seater or?
It's an 8-seater.
Eight-seater, so it's an eight-seater. So that's, okay, that makes sense. And
So this is an 8-seater, so using Clifford as an example, and they've been part of the process to help get through this. That main truck was an 8-seater. This tanker truck will be a 5-seater. And then they have the other tanker that'll be there. So that's the extra one. That'll eliminate the rescue and the backup pumper that are sitting there. So in Clifford, we're actually getting rid of 2 trucks, and they'll have 3 sitting there. That'll do the same purpose as what we have there now.
Just a quick question. Most of them have a carryover to 2015. This one has it to be funded in 2015.
This was part of our borrowing from the reserves
Okay.
that will fund, the rest of that will be back at what we're putting in next year.
Okay.
Part of that debenture and all that coming off, so that'll be done.
I guess my question is similar to Ron's. There's always new codes and new rules, and it's cost us equipment over the years. We had to upgrade the men's equipment, we had to upgrade whatever. So you're on a board that has a review of what's happened. Do you anticipate anything, or do you put that into your budget to anticipate changes? Because each year there seems to be changes that cost. And I don't know whether you've anticipated those, Chris, or?
Yeah, it's a good point, and I'll answer that. And you're right that there is changes, and part of you as council allowing me to be on the board is we're ready for those changes, and I can prepare for them actually a couple years down the road. And I apologize, that's why I've been stepping out, because there's a horrific fire in Quebec last night, and part of my role with the board is I'm chair of the prevention committee, and this is a prevention issue, so we're getting a lot of call from national news agencies wanting us to comment, so I've been trying to deal with them also. So it does allow me to stay up on top of what the changes are coming, and I'm quite confident that this is like that. If you remember back to our operating budget, we put an inspector in 1 day a week to help mitigate the changes that are coming to care facilities, which is in there, which is exactly attributable to last night's incident, is a care facility, we're thinking, and there's upwards of over 30 seniors that died in this fire. So we're anticipating that being a huge issue, and we're getting prepared to deal with it in our municipality. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? I just want to, I don't know if, Chris, you've been busy, but I'm going to bring it out right now because it's beyond tape and hopefully people will listen to it. But Wellington Advertiser had a chart in on fire protection and costs, and for some unknown reason, the chief didn't have our right numbers, and we're showing as the highest cost per resident. And I believe the number they had for population was 6,200.
Yeah,
So can you maybe, Gord, fill us in on,
Sure.
we did some
I
calculations.
was trying to figure that out too, so I'm going to email our FIR to, I think it was Mike Robinson
Yeah.
that did that one too. But something, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, I've seen another population number that I know is wrong, and it's MPAC on some of their reports, and I just got Janet to check, and they've got a population of somewhere around 6,500. And we know that isn't right, and I have brought it to their attention before, but it's still there. As you know, the population signs are about 9,300 or so, and that's kind of, when I do the FIR, because StatsCan doesn't give us, individual like we used to. So if you calculate, and the cost figure is correct, that 871,000 is correct, but that works out to $94, not 135.
Right.
And, we've talked, we're the only one that we're aware of in Wellington that has 3 stations, and we have 85 firefighters, so the costs are going to be high, no doubt, but those figures aren't the right ones, so.
Well,
for
and
sure.
Senator Wellington talks about them being so low, but they have 26,000 people, 2 fire departments, and a smaller geographical area. So it's a lot easier when you have high density to do that. So I just was a little I didn't want you to get calls, because I've been telling people that we get great fire protection for under $100 per resident, and that's where we're still at.
Or $95, you can tell them.
$95, as it turns out, 94, pretty close
Well,
anyways.
if we have a big turnover every 6 years of firefighters, we have to retrain everybody, as Chief said.
Yeah, yeah.
Mayor Bridge, that's exactly why we hope to have a delegation about the performance measures program, because, well, it's just not beneficial to put out statistics that aren't correct.
Well, that's right.
And I think that program is kind of rife with that,
Yeah,
and people trying to compare things that really aren't comparable.
right.
Mayor Bridge, not that it matters, but where does that 7 municipalities in Wellington, where does $92 or $93, whatever it was, where does that put us in those 7? But not 134 or whatever.
No.
We are high, but again, we have the same problem we have over all our departments, I guess. We have a lot of infrastructure, and whether it's, 6,500 or 9,500, not that many people. And the thing is, Center Wellington, or I'm sure if you lived in Toronto or whatever, the per capita figure will be much lower, but your density's that much lower. You've got an apartment building that's Harrison, so it's your infrastructure, and just the way it goes.
Sorry, I'm going to hammer the performance measures program again, because if you look at our fire department, it has in it, built in, a vehicle management system where we're funding year to year out of reserves, and that's built into the tax and what's supported. There's a lot of departments that don't do that, so if they need $220,000 for a tanker truck, then that comes out of the capital once,
Yep.
and that's not included in their performance measurement
I
amount.
don't see that.
So it's just a bunch of garbage, quite frankly, that's going out, so.
Well, and that's what I thought this
Say what you
report
think.
was. I just want to let everybody here know that
Don't hold
that's
back.
the real true figure, and,
Great, I can't wait to go home and read my paper now.
but I'm sure people will be calling you and asking you why, so then you have the answer now.
So I got,
Just to follow up on Bill's point there, the 871,000, that is a correct
That
figure.
is correct, yeah.
But that also does include all the other expenses and funding in that too, so.
That's the true number is what we're saying.
Yeah.
But it
And,
means
and the
reserve.
thing is, we are replacing and we're
That-
maintaining as we go,
Yeah,
so.
so if
And you
people are-
got 3 stations to
Yeah,
do
if people
that.
are telling you that, say that takes into consideration replacing equipment and everything else, reserves and built-ins.
plus we have the best fire department in the area.
Anyways, thanks, Chris.
Well, the best station chiefs. I mean, chief.
Oh, was this a addendum to this one? Is it one to bylaw? People put an extra one in here, moved it up or something? Dropped it down? Oh, it didn't change the numbers.
No, I did provide a replacement sheet. It was just to cover a couple of things. Under funding options, it listed that I was going to be paying for a post meter. I decided, no, I'm not going to. So anyways, the numbers have changed. Capital's $5,000, and it's just carryover is where that's coming from.
Very good.
Excellent.
Any questions?
Any questions?
If they were all that easy,
Bill has
Jerry,
some
we'd be
questions.
finished.
Can you not make it an even 5? Come on, what the heck?
Just for information, the building department contributes $14,000 to its reserve each year. I think there's some 70,000 in that reserve, so he's not exactly active in the capital side of things. so.
Thanks, Jerry. I don't think there's any questions. Thanks. Yeah, oh, yeah, Mandy's off on a
Okay.
ultrasound, I believe.
Maybe
Allowed to say that?
I'll answer questions on the funding of economic development or on the projects, and Gordon can answer it on the funding, but just one point on the industrial parks. I mentioned in the summary that we had $340,000 for Harriston and Palmerston. We're going to build that, at least all or part of that road in Palmerston this year to service what will be 10 lots. And the EA for the Harrison Industrial Park will be done in the spring, and with any luck between the two budgets, we can finish that EA, construct Palmerston, and maybe construct a bit of the Harrison Road, so we have some of that, remember that 11-acre parcel we wanted to start servicing, so, because we're basically out in Harrison of industrial land now.
And I guess on the funding side, I'm trying to use up some of our development charges, like for the roads and sewer and that, because basically what we're doing is we are doing growth-related things here. So we're using that. Economic development has minimal reserves. And then an example of one of our guesses is 65,000 industrial land. So we are selling a lot of land, but we do sell it very cheaply, and we always have to get legal and surveying and all that too. That figure, who knows? It could be a little lower, could be a little higher too, because you can't forecast that. But so there's very few projects there, and I think it is worth reminding that economic development, again, in the operating side, the most expensive thing is debt servicing. And that is to service our lot and buy the land in Clifford and all that too. But big dollars, but not that many projects really.
But I'd just like to add that through your worship, what Gord's saying, I've been involved in economic development since day one. And the way I look at it, I know we do sell our property cheap, but you know, us getting the people here, that's producing jobs for us. I'm gonna say, since we amalgamated, we've probably, as a council, have, you know, there's 1,000 jobs in our area. I think that's pretty good to say that. I'm comfortable saying we've created 1,000 jobs in our community since amalgamation.
Yeah, and that meets the provincial policy statements and all that about providing employment lands. And I think this council and the previous ones have done a really good job of trying to keep that inventory, you know, just so you don't have a huge land bank. And it's tough because I know Belinda always is saying you need it shovel ready, which is true, but the dollars are so high. But what's really nice is we've been able to get rid of the land and move the products that we're making. If you kind of think of this as a business transaction.
That's for you, Mayor Bridge. The paving of Harry Stone's parking lot, I'm assuming that's the same $45,000, or is that an additional $45,000?
Last year that we didn't? Yep, exactly. And that's in preparation for the, quote, big dig. And it's going to be very vital to get that done before the construction starts, for sure.
Any other questions? Okay, going forward.
Just for fun, the $400,000 operating for economic development, almost half of that is debt servicing now.
Yeah.
So if you were doing performance measures, our 400,000 for economic development divided by the population would include half of paying for Clifford lands and industrial lands. Well, a lot of places don't do that.
No.
Finance and admin is up next, yes. It's pretty similar, only the dollar figures are smaller to economic. One thing that we really hoped would have been done in 2013 was the fiber optic to this building. However, they have assured us that they will do it this year in the spring. I know, various jurisdictional matters, I guess they didn't want to do it while that construction, and I think we're all very aware of that went into November. And we have computer upgrades, nothing major, just kind of the routine. We buy a few computers because we've got the server done already. The kind of unknown that $10,000, as you know, we still have a few drainage, flooding issues or whatever, and so that's a placeholder that hopefully we can get all that cleaned up too, and a bit more in software. So, go ahead.
Your worship, through you, your worship, the computer software licenses, I didn't realize there were so many different regulations or rules applied to each individual software license. Is that an annual cost for us?
That's, yeah, additional. One of the mandated things we've got to do is the Accessibility Act, right? And we have to provide certain formats on our websites and our documents and that too. So we have purchased, I think, 3 copies in 2012 of Adobe Professional, which is the one you need. So we think we're going to have to provide even more of them. There's always some Microsoft Office, and I think I mentioned before, the trend the last few years is the cost of our hardware has been going down. It's great. But our software has been going up, and we had that Microsoft audit there 3 years ago, so we're we're totally legal and above board, but,
Yeah,
it is
I
a
didn't realize.
cost.
I thought once you bought a software package, that was yours. Well, I found out very quickly
Yeah.
when my computer crashed, that you have one, signability
Yeah,
on
like
the
Ma-
software package. And you gotta buy it every time you change computer.
I know, Matt Lubers has done a great job researching this, and he's kind of got it, like, sometimes it's better to buy a single license, and sometimes a multi, and all that, but, anyway, I thought you gotta put that provision in there.
Good. Any other questions?
Just a question on the office renovations.
Sure.
Can you just explain them a little, what they would be?
Well, putting the drywall back downstairs, putting some kind of a surface, I don't think we've decided if it's gonna be carpet or hardwood or something that's easy care, water resistant possibly.
Linoleum of some sort.
Yeah, so it's basically these things. I don't know if we have any more windows that maybe need doing, but it's mostly to do with moisture issues in this building.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on. Cemeteries.
Get comfortable.
Well, I'm just hoping it's gonna be a little more easy on me than what my wish list was, got chopped anyway, so. Cemeteries, with $5,000 for monument repairs, Harrison cremation garden improvements for $5,000. And then, the CAO mentioned earlier about the mapping, and, $20,000 in there to try to get a handle on the plots and where everything stands.
Is that Clifford first, I take it?
Clifford would probably be the first one, yeah.
Is that gonna do just Clifford? Or are you hoping to do more?
Well, we'll see what happens, yeah.
Really?
Is that an outside source that does the mapping, or ourselves?
No, it's outside sourcing, yeah.
But, I'm sorry, the Harrison Palmerston cemeteries they're pretty straight though, are they not? As opposed to.
A lot better than what Clifford's
Well, I'm
is,
just
put
saying,
it that way.
You
There's,
you gentlemen have been up at Clifford, yeah.
yeah.
So I think if you're a priority, if you want something or one of them done, that would be the one.
Yeah, we'll probably start at Clifford, yeah.
Just the transfer from reserves, I'm assuming that's the Clifford Cemetery Reserve? And is that because we'll probably do the mapping in Clifford, or can you use that money for any cemetery in Minto?
Primarily, I'm putting that towards the mapping, because I think that's the biggest issue right now. Like, we've got the, the chapel and the columbarium pretty much all done, but the mapping is the big one, and there was some reserve money, so I thought, well, we can use that instead of tax money for this year.
And the other thing, the monument repairs, is that not the responsibility of the family or the owners of the plot, or that's our responsibility?
That's our responsibility and the bases along with that. We're gonna have to look at more.
Perpetual care, right? Right,
Yeah.
isn't that through perpetual care?
Yeah.
And again, I'll remind that the problem with perpetual care and why we have even our operating, if we look at it, is that we can't touch the principal.
That's right.
So we can only do interest, and interest being so low for so long now, that's why it's eating.
We did one today at 2.4% for 4 years, and that's like,
Yes, I saw
15
that. companies,
that's the best one. And I was just saying to Lori the other day, it's like we have more and more invested. We're well over 300,000 invested, and our earnings are like barely $11,000 or so. And, yeah, so we're happy about low interest rates when we're borrowing, but this is one case when we're certainly not.
Now, it's just a question on the mapping. When we say mapping, are we talking somebody going there and trying to figure out where
X-ray.
X-ray, that's what we're talking about, right? Like,
Well, to find out where the plots really are and where
Yeah.
people are buried.
because our
and
maps
this is-
show something, and right now, that necessarily isn't right, and that's where we're getting into the problem, so we have to get.
That's right, when you start digging, you find out
Yeah.
different.
Okay, so that's why I couldn't figure out why a mapping thing, but then it dawned on me, it's gotta be because the technology they gotta use to find where everything is, right?
Yeah.
That was my first
Yeah.
step, you volunteers to go.
Yeah, you'd have, we can't dig. Yes.
And we'll have to look at future funding too to
Yeah.
get all three cemeteries looked at.
Yeah, well, I think it's, in fact, we need to do it. Anything else? Okay, that's that one easy. Oh, here's the roads and street light.
This one's really easy.
That's pretty easy. And you had a big wish list on this one.
I did. You guys chopped it like crazy.
You're seeing the chop version.
Starting out the 16th Line Bridge, which as I think CO White's went through most of these, but if you have any questions on them, just stop me as I go through them. 16th Line Bridge, we got $650,000 for it. That's 90% funded through MIII. We have Harrison. There's some things that have been cut out of here, as sidewalks we're not doing this year, and tree carvings and such. Allen Street was done last year. Ayton Road was done last year. Harrison George Street is $200,000. Harrison Laura Street, the connecting link, it's there at $50,000. You're probably gonna look at a little bit more than that by the time they're done out there. Utility truck for $20,000. The crew truck, which was last year, has been brought over to this year, and we should have that probably the first week of February. Purchase of the plow truck, so that's out, and that's already taken care of. We have the third line culvert, which was identified in our bridge roads need study, and we have that in at $210,000. Pike Lake Road engineering, just to get started on that, that's for your plowing match. Get some engineering done on that.
Just, if I might, your worship, I believe the name on that section of road is something Lane. Gillespie Lane as opposed to Pike Lake Road.
Okay.
That might,
Does it go all the way, the Gillespie Lane, then go all the way to the Pike Lake Road?
no,
Or
well,
just
it
down?
does. It meets up with it at the 6th.
Okay, so then when we drove it, it was Pike Lake till the 6th, and then
And then
when we went over, that's
Gillespie
Gillespie
Lane
Lane, because it
from
is
there.
Gillespie Lane from the
Yeah.
highway.
That's right. I just, it's
Yeah.
just semantics, but,
Okay. Stormwater catch basins repaired, we dropped that down to $20,000. Still a lot of work on the catch basins to do. Palmerston, Wellington Street, and that's the one off Prospect. Well,
Just a question with that, Brian. Like, there's fresh pavement between the trailer park to the next street over. So when you're saying Wellington Street, you're saying from Prospect, like right over to the arena? Is that still?
no, we did a section there last year preparing it. It was mainly gravel there, and we made a pavement base coat.
Okay,
Now we're doing top coat on that road.
okay, so
It's been sitting like that, I'm not sure for how long. Like,
then Wellington is also Albert Street, so you're saying Wellington and Albert, right over to King Street will be?
the whole thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
See, I didn't realize that was only, first coat.
yeah, it's just the base coat. It's been, and I'm not sure when that was done, but it's been a while since it's,
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sorry, your worship. Didn't mean to jump at that. Yeah, I know, I apologize.
You apologize.
Clifford Street, Queen Clark to William. We've removed the curb gutter and sidewalk out of there and just doing the base asphalt this year. Fourth line tar and chip, we went through that earlier on. I don't think I can touch any more on that. We'll try to do it in the fall, but we'll see how it goes. I'd like to leave it sitting as long as possible, but if it's ready to go in the fall, then we can get the tar and chip done
Early,
then.
like September.
early fall, right?
Early fall, not like, not.
Well, not late fall, no, because of,
We don't have a lot of luck this year in November, did we?
no,
Terry?
yeah, no, tar and chip doesn't take in a late fall. no.
Okay.
I just have a question. That road was a tar and chip road
Yeah.
previously, was it not?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
tar and chip, yeah.
So, I think returning it to what it was should satisfy those people out there, and it's probably the way to go.
But I
Yeah.
think there were some good comments, and I think going forward, now that we have the bridge and road study, we need some open dialogue with our ratepayers, and we do have a lot of different scenarios of how they use the roads now out there. And I think Ron's, I think it was you, Ron, commented about the 90%. One time they got 90% funding for roads, and that's why there are so many tar and chip. If you look at our percentage of roads in Minto that are tar and chip to gravel, and compare us to Howick and other places, like, we're way high on the tar and chip and low on the gravel. They're the opposite. They're probably got less, almost, Howick's almost the opposite, West Gray's almost the opposite. So, this is something that if this council, maybe we'll get out of this year, but probably further councils will have to look at that overall plan. I think we have to really look at developing a plan and going out and getting some public meetings and figuring out what's our economics out here.
There are several aspects you can, like traffic counts.
What you're doing this year.
That's right. The size of equipment that's hitting our roads now. There's all different sorts of scenarios you can run into, and with the traffic count now, we'll have a better idea how much traffic really uses that road, and then we can build it to that spec.
But I think even on the traffic count, one of the difficulties on the traffic count, it just gives numbers.
Correct.
Where I'd like to see us somehow come up with, okay, like certain times of the year, I mean, I've driven those roads now, and I go out and look at them, and we get large trucks sitting at the side of the road, whether it's being loaded for grain, we have some large industries that have grain, and we need them, and that's fine, but there's a different, at one time it was mixed farming, and you had small tractors and 100-acre farms, and now it's these large farms where traffic, or the big equipment moves.
Correct.
And a lot, and we've done the roads tour, and a lot of our roads are very narrow. And for these big tractors going by and equipment,
And I've sat with my road foreman, and we will be sending letters out next time we do roads.
Yeah, that was.
And that will be brought, so they're aware of
Yeah.
what's coming up in the future.
Yeah.
And then,
So I think we've learned something, and I think going forward, I think that we have to have that dialogue out there.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Bridge, that fourth line, did we not go door to door and tell them what we were doing? Wasn't that, I thought that message came from council to Public Works, that we were to let them know what we were doing.
no, that's,
No, I think we talked about that after, that we realized we didn't do that.
We gave them notice that we were doing the work, but we didn't engage them
No, we didn't engage.
in a dialogue or anything like that. It was just, we're coming to do this work, and,
So I think.
remember, it was in the fall, it was in the near the end of the year, and we felt we better do that for safety reasons.
And I think I found that, like, we did it for safety reasons, it was pretty, like, we got that reading, and we had some accidents, so we did it for safety reasons, but I think where we dropped the ball is we should have had some dialogue a little bit with them, just to let them know what the process was going to be at least.
Just a question for you, Brian. Now, when I made the comment, when you rebuild a road, you look at 2 to 5 years to settle them before you go back in there.
typically, that's
Yeah, no,
the
that's what I've
rule
been
of
told.
thumb, yeah.
Then when the gentleman, like I was thinking, I was trying to think of what road he was talking about, it was ripped up and put down in a month.
That was the 8th.
Okay, the 8th, so I'm thinking maybe a month, was he a little bit off his number on the month? And I don't think that road was rebuilt the way the 4th was.
It wasn't reconstructed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like for him to come up with a month, I just think, wow, that's,
Yeah, this was pulverization,
yeah,
and that goes down like 12 inches.
yeah.
You
But
know.
the 8th one wasn't reconstructed like that, though.
I think, I'm not sure, I'd have to
don't
look
know.
back, but it could have been a mill and pave.
Just mill and paved,
Yeah, and if that's the case on a mill and pave,
Yeah, and
You
like
go
I
on
said,
to the very
I
next
didn't
one.
wanna get into it, I was kinda curious
Yeah, and
where he came up with the 30-day thing.
Yeah,
'Cause I've
no.
never heard of a road being reconstructed and put back down in 30 days, so.
No, mill and pave, basically, the road base is fine, you just got, you're
Yeah.
basically just redoing the surface.
Yeah,
So if the
and-
machine comes in and does it, you add a bit to it and lay it all out, it happens right immediately.
yeah,
But,
Like, I can see their frustration and what they're thinking.
most
about it,
certainly, yeah.
But, yeah,
all right.
thank you.
Just one last point, we have to have that dialogue on the rural roads, we also have to have the dialogue on the urban
Yes.
standard that we accept. Most of our existing roads in our urban areas, at least other than Palmerston, it has a lot of curb and gutter. Harrison has very little, and similarly in Clifford. So when we say Queen Street base asphalt, there's curbs, gutters, and sidewalks that aren't in there that were cut out by Gord, not me. Similarly, Gord cut the George Street budget too, so Anyway, that doesn't have curbs, gutters.
We have
We may have
nowhere-
left a sidewalk in there.
We have nowhere where the leaves can go then. Real quick.
But it, just as an approximate, if you're talking, you cut that out, that's about another $200,000, is it not?
That's exactly it. It's like, oh, curb and gutters, and, you know, to the layman, I think, oh, I add some curbs and gutters. We're talking 200,000 versus 450,000. Like, that's huge. Like, if you want to talk, that's like a 6% tax increase on one project. And we actually cut probably about $2 million out of this budget, and that's the thing, the dollars are really big, and we're maybe not even living up to the standards. And if you remember in the asset management plan, we said that's what we need, some community engagement on levels of service. This is, to put a pun, this is where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
I'm still feeling naked.
So we're looking at, what, a 12 or 13% increase then this year for taxes? Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of things being pushed back, and we're really gonna have a really stern look at what we're gonna do in the future, because it's just piling up.
Brian, do we have a roads plan other than our asset management? Do we have a roads plan that we hope?
Everything's gonna fall together and give you, well, actually it is now, that you can have a look at it and say, this is what has to be done in 2016 and 2017, and that all includes, I put Wayne and Mike and myself together, getting us all working in the same direction, and that'll be water and sewer and curb and gutter and sidewalks and roads, and
They gotta be done roads is what I'm talking about, making sure that,
that's correct.
yes.
You know, it goes back to what you were talking about, George, about the population we have and the facilities that we have here in Minto. Like, it's unbelievable, the facilities, the buildings that we have here. But you look at how proactive we've been, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we were rolling $12 million at one point when I was on council, and we're down to $6 million now? Roughly, so 12, and like I said, being proactive, like with the water towers and the sewer systems, our roads, like, I think we're in pretty good shape. So, you know. you're talking
We're not
about-
the only ones, there's a lot, everybody's in the same boat. It's just that, you know, everybody has a little different.
Yeah, and we weren't getting a lot of grants and a lot of loans or different programs from the government. You know, we're basically funding this with our taxpayers' dollars. So,
No, and you know, as Bill pointed out in his opening remarks, we've done, was it $4 million a year for the last 3 years? So we've done $12 million worth of capital. It's not like we've been sitting on it.
No.
And I think one of the reasons why we're getting some of these grants is the fact that there's a lot of things they look into, and it's the fact that we are investing, and we have put some tax increases in place and other things, because we're looking at it and saying, yeah, we have to move forward. So when they look at it, when you get a grant, and I'm hoping that the federal government, if in 2015 things come through the way they're saying, and it looks like a surplus, and they know from FCM, they've talked about it, and we have an opportunity this year some of you are going to FCM, and you'll be able to have maybe some discussions with some ministers at FCM, that we need that infrastructure funding program. It has to come from the federal to the provincial to us. It has to come down, those 2 levels of government have to pay into the pot. We're giving them the money, our money through our income taxes and our gas taxes and everything else, our HST, for them to take it and divert it back. But we're not it seems to be a bit of a plug in the pipeline here, and when it gets to rural, we don't seem to be getting quite the same amount. So we'll keep harping on it, but we're not sitting here either. We're trying to do stuff. So
That's right.
I appreciate what you're trying to do. So, even though we ripped $2 million out of your budget.
Carrying on, GPS unit, that's just some upgrades to our locations that our snowplow and sand and salting units do. Traffic counters, Bill spoke on that earlier.
Sorry, Brian, could you explain that GPS thing again? What is that actual GPS? Is that like a license to work off a satellite?
That works off.
Is that the GPS, or is that an actual physical GPS unit that you bought?
No, it's all part of what they call the Dickie John system. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Traffic counters are what? Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I should have asked you. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Traffic counters are the lines you see across the road, the rubber lines that have a counter on the side.
Okay.
And
That's $20,000 for something like that?
that's that's for, probably you're looking at around 10 counters
So
with the with the program with it.
Where would you put those counters and what's the value of?
Well, we go back to our road need study, and we take the bad roads that are identifiable, and then we get the traffic count on those roads, and this is how many.
Does it give the type of traffic, so? Why?
It doesn't identify whether it's a tractor, or a tractor trailer, or a car, or a truck,
Heavy traffic
or,
or light traffic?
that's right, yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to somehow, Ron, I think, find out how we can maybe incorporate maybe some of
Certainly,
that.
because you might have lower traffic, but not as heavy
Right.
a vehicle.
But I think what you talked about before, this is gonna be very key in us sitting down and figuring out where our best places to put our money going forward is.
Yep.
And we have all the information so that we can talk about how it should be widened, should be just resurfaced, or what it should be, depending on.
It gives you the time of day.
Yeah.
That, how much your heavy traffic's. But if you wanted to identify what type of traffic it is, you can put a person there one day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And-
We might have to do that
That's
to
right.
get sort of an idea of if
Yeah.
it's truck
Yeah.
traffic or what.
Right.
Good.
I know a lot of people, like in, not in smaller towns, but they hire students in the summertime to do traffic counts. and
But I think this is very
identify.
important for us to go forward with the planning,
I'm not
with
looking
having
at that
this.
one.
in there.
No money, that's right.
Yeah. And then,
Any further questions that,
just the streetlights near TG Minto, that's coming out of a reserve. And I just want to explain that a little bit.
Yeah. What we do, streetlights are funded by what they call special area rates, so basically the urban areas and a couple of rural subdivisions. And normally we've been spending 13 to 20,000 a year. Now it's come, I think we maybe had a delegation or something, they want better lighting, schools, TG Minto and all that too. And they're like, okay, if we throw $50,000 on this area rate, it's gonna be a tremendous increase. So what we decided to do was take the bulk of that from dividends that we've received from West Ontario, and we have them in the reserve, so we're gonna do that, and then just try and keep the street lighting flat, especially if we go forward on this retrofit project too, so.
And just to give you some background, that the employees at TG Minto has asked, there's no light from the corner of TG Minto all the way past the subdivision. And a lot of people are in the late shift, they walk, and, they walk to work and walk back. So at night, it's a long way, that Toronto Street can be bad if you can't see somebody, so.
And just to let you know, the Toronto Street is County Road 5, which the county does own, so just to throw that in there.
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's our responsibility.
We have to.
I know it's our
light it.
responsibility, but just
Yeah.
letting you know that it's county road, and we're funding it again.
Oh, yeah,
Good guy.
okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, but that's what, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
So we've been
yeah.
working on that for a year, so that's finally,
That's finally coming, yeah. A few things that, do I say Gort cut, or you cut, or?
They got cut.
We had on our list, a single axle plow truck that's up on our replacement plan for our vehicle replacement. We had a sanding salt plow unit for, the sidewalks. The eliminators that I spoke about earlier on the graders that we're gonna eliminate that extra pass, and in time, we put that on the side also. So those are a few things that'll be coming down the pipe that put off till next year, after just FYI. I gotta get my words in. but-
I'm gathering that Brian's not real happy.
Oh, yeah, I'm just going with the flow.
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
Dave Turton cut that from your budget?
Yeah, I
Or
did
who was in
speak
charge?
with him.
That's why he's not.
I noticed he quit.
Yeah, he left before my guy.
So the services in our town are gonna drop because of him.
Yeah. Is there anything else on roads?
oh, sorry, Terry.
Just under the comments, there's a comment here, as a result of paving Jay's parking lot in Palmerston and second lift of asphalt Queen Street, Clifford, have not been included in projects for 2014. Does that mean they're not being done, or that has to be added to what we already have here?
No, they're not being done this year. That's part of my stripping that's happened.
Well, but I think that parking lot, to me, let's make sure it doesn't settle again either.
That's true.
I mean,
It wouldn't hurt to
Jays
sit for,
sit for a year,
No.
because,
That's right.
all we need to do is put more asphalt down, then have a big hole under it.
yeah.
Put it in.
And it'll be fine as a parking lot, to leave it in
Yeah.
January.
We'll
for
make
a
sure
waste.
that it's not gonna be dusty or anything like what do you put, calcium or something down there?
Yeah, we throw a little calcium if it gets that bad. I don't think you'll get that dust because
Okay,
people don't go that speed, but
okay.
we'll keep an eye on it.
Depending when I go for a haircut.
Exactly.
That's right. You should walk, Ron, from your place. You should be driving anyway.
Do walk a little bit.
Yeah, right. Take the trail.
That's it.
Any more questions, or move on to wastewater? Well, as you all know, that at the end of this year, we'll be taking over our wastewater systems again. That's a big undertaking for our department. Starting off with Palmerston, we put a pretty big dent in Palmerston the last couple of years. As you all know, we left 10,000 in there. We can have a look at that too, whether or not we won't be able to align very much with $10,000, but we'll have a look at, see what we can do. We have the Harrison Force Main project for $550,000, and that's funded through the BCF funding. We have Clifford Ann Street, Park to Nelson. Sewers alone on that are $105,000. Oops, I'm sorry.
The reason we're putting, that's the one I was gonna ask about. The reason we're putting that in is so those lots become available for sale, or what is that? Why is the reasoning for that?
On Ann Street in Clifford? Yes, to service a few of those lots.
So
There's no sewer
Those are
or water
lot-
on that section of road.
those are lots that we own,
That's
the
correct,
town owns.
yes.
So
There's a few, yeah, there's about four of the people that abut up to that.
would we be expecting to sell those lots next year after we, or do we think there are some properties in Clifford that we do own that we have to sell yet? And do we think we're gonna be that busy to be able to sell those and sell those?
Yeah, there's some houses on septic there, so this project's actually been on the books for a few years, so it benefits some other landowners there too.
Okay.
So coincidentally also benefits us. So we will have four lots there serviced, plus the two at Allen Street, so 6. And then we still have to dispose of the ball field, old ball field as well. So I'm not gonna promise you that we'll sell them all even in the next 3 years, but I expect an offer on some lots coming in very shortly.
Oh, do you?
So it doesn't hurt to solve one problem and just keep adding a little bit to our inventory, because the absorption rate of homes in Clifford is probably about 3 or 4 a year max.
And that's what I'm concerned about, if we've got the Clifford Ball, for example, that we've got to sell lots that we could sell lots to, and
Right.
so.
This
do
plan,
we wait a year and,
well, this plan isn't funded by the lot sales. It's funded by some other areas. So the lot sales, if they come, can go into reserve or wherever you want to put them. So if you didn't do that project this year, I'm not entirely sure how it's funded, but you probably won't take any off your rate,
okay.
tax rate. You
That's-
probably won't.
If it would help, then it would be.
Yeah, wastewater and water to some extent too, that is one area we do have a lot of reserves, so we can fund it. Some is from the current user fees, but this one, it's kind of like the exact opposite of roads. We actually do have the money to do the things, but as Brian says, what we're trying to do is coordinate the water and the wastewater and the roads and everything together to do that. But I think the Clifford one, it's more of an investment that we can afford, and there could be a potential payoff too.
We will be getting then a water and sewer rate from
The new people.
particular houses that have the septic now, so that should help in funding some money monthly.
That's right, and now, well, we've got pretty good information on the water and wastewater assets too, so as I've mentioned before, that's one thing I want to do is get our consultants in mid to the late part of this year and analyze what our potential meter rates are going to be.
Have we communicated with these people, again, we're talking about communication, to let them know that, yeah, you're gonna be on water and sewer rates now? Or you're gonna have to?
Yeah, and I know we have, gosh, I'm trying to think, maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, we've had delegations in from Clifford about, what did we call it? Development of the west side of Clifford in general, and I know that was mentioned at that time, but, there's a lot of, new owners in there too, so probably
So-
Brian's got them.
Again, my question will be, will there be cost to those people? That's why I'm talking about communication, so we put the sewer in, and then now we expect them to join up, so they have to run a
Yeah.
line from their house.
So if you remember in what, Minto Street, Park Street and that too, there's sometimes frontage fees. We have to look at, some people are already on and some aren't on, so there may be some cost recoveries there too.
But will the cost be going to those people that, of course, you say, I want to stay on septic, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we have a bylaw that where there is municipal services, they must
Certainly
connect to
understand
them.
that.
Yep,
So, we should be communicating to them that,
certainly,
so that we're not having a bundle in here and we gotta explain that to them all over again.
for sure.
Okay, thanks. Sorry.
They should be happy because if
Yep.
they go on sewer and water, their valuation of their property should go up.
I,
But I'm with you on the
yeah,
communication.
Communicate.
I'd hate to be,
Simple.
I'd hate to be putting a brand new septic in, you know, like 2
Yeah.
months before I get
That's
sewer
right.
and water, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
You're upgrading it.
yeah.
Then we got some sewer plant capital upgrades, coming through from Center of Wellington for 20,000. Palmerston, Lauren and Walker, this is, one of the Murphy's projects. We're, running some sewer and water down to them. Harrison, Queen Street behind Murphy's. We're running in the sewer and water. We gotta get that water line out of their property because it cuts right across the property there, so. And that's been on the books for quite a while. Harrison inflow and infiltration. We've run into a lot of problems. It's as bad or is as even worse than what Palmerston was.
Really?
Yeah, so we're gonna take a little stab at that. Wayne's been investigating a little bit on that, so.
And the reason we don't notice that much is because they got the lagoon system.
It's a lagoon system, but it's topping the peak on those at the rim too, so. Harrison George Street oversizing. This is on the sewer part. This is mainly storm sewer work. It's for 25,000. Harrison, we have a blower and sluice gate, which was requested by Senator Wellington also. It was a high priority. Clifford Miltronics, this is the brain of the system for all your sewer plants. There's $10,000 upgrade on that. Generator, I think Deputy Fisk mentioned this, that it should be on for our emergency management, for supplying power to the warming stations, and it can be moved around. It's a portable one also. It
So-
can handle a whole building, this one.
So, you want to talk to the Terry, or I was just wondering, is this one, we
were
felt we were
short.
one short, right?
We are one short.
So this would not.
This is the one that makes up.
Yeah, the last time we had the ice storm, the concern was we'd maybe take it from one of our water units, take it to the warming center, warm it up a bit, take it back. So this will be the offset, so we
This is
should
the
be able to
one,
cover
that's
all.
correct.
All
Yep.
right, I just wondered, I thought
Yeah.
that was what it was.
Yeah. Palmerston Plant and Equipment. There's $7,000 in there. Harrison Plant and Equipment, there's 34. That's for your effluent flow meters and your digester tank mixer. And those are both high priority down there from Center Wellington. And then share through wastewater on the utility truck. Any questions on those?
Sharing the utility truck with what?
With roads, yeah, it's through Communities in Bloom.
And that's the Community Bloom one?
That's
Okay,
the
so
truck
we have
that
to
they're
replace
using.
that.
Yeah. There's,
Oh, are you gonna give the ones you wanted that we cut again, Brian, or not for that? There is, there is one for wastewater I wanted to mention, and it's in Palmerston. I don't know if I have the streets right. Brunswick and Bolton. In that area, we've got quite a number of people on their own individual pumping stations. And there's sewer and water and road work that has to be done in that area, so it's actually quite a big project. So we're looking at that, doing a little bit of internal planning, but that's a big one we're gonna have to look at possibly for 2015, or, did you say 1.3 million? But there's probably, what, a dozen homes there that have their own pumping stations. Some people maybe on septic still, I'm not sure, but, and road and sewer and water needs to be done, so.
I don't know who told me, but I think quite a few people just put new septic systems in there. So, is it never, yeah,
And that was funded,
they got funded.
yeah, they got funded.
Yeah, just because we weren't able to do the,
Didn't know that.
Yeah, we'll go to water. We have SCADA upgrades for 30,000. The water meters, which were mentioned also earlier, for 650,000. That'll do Harrison and Clifford. We have valve replacements in 3 towns. We had it in at 15, but Gord got hold of that and chopped her down to 45. Oh. The water for Ann Street in Clifford, 65,000. Then we have Clifford, Elora, and Clark, and Elora and William, the loops. I'm not sure why this was put in, but we can have that removed. Gord, it was 130,000. This project was done on Queen Street. That's the one we're putting a base coat on.
that's, we don't need that 130?
No,
Oh, at James Street tie-in, yeah.
oh, I see, okay, well, you had Elora and Clark, and I'm going, that's what we did last year, so, okay, okay. Pump house, the Harrison pump house flow control valves, there's 7,000 for Harrison. George Street oversizing, it's 133,000. Queen Street behind Murphy's, that's the water portion for 50,000. We have Clifford, Clark, Queen to James, that's a tie-in, that's the loop that we're going around onto James Street, and that'll be tied in together. That'll complete that one. The water rate study, new metered rates, that's a given, that has to be done. Palmerston Pump House flow control valves are 13,000. In Palmerston, Lauren and Walker, that's the Murphy project, that's 70,000 for the water. And it's time to do the Palmerston and the Harrison water tower. We put only the RV unit for the Palmerston one to have a look at it to see what type of shape it's in, kind of shape it's in, and the Harrison water, the water tower for 23,000 to have that redone. Utility vehicle for 25,000. That's the remainder from the Communities in Bloom truck that Communities in Bloom use. We can use that also for our wastewater during the winter time, because we'll be needing that coming January of next year. The generator for 35,000, which is a share of the one that was in the wastewater section of it. So
How much is the actual generator then? Is it 70,000? Wow.
$70,000.
Yeah, and the truck's 45. Utility truck?
55, I think it is.
Oh, sorry.
There's a bit on roads, yeah.
Oh, you got a bit of roads, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
I just bought a generator for 1,000, so.
Yeah. Well, I think if you could somehow line them up, or something, how many of those we need?
Yeah.
Just stack them? 500?
I'm not sure how many watts, but Wayne know how many watts. He was the one that looked into it and got the prices on it. So
Well, we should have just asked for yours then.
Yeah, it's more of mine.
we have 3,500 for hydrants in there. Clifford well number 1, flow control for 3,000. That's a flow control valve. Harrison, George Street, Arthur to Maitland. We did some design work there that has to be done. And Palmerston well 4 is 20,000 in there. They get some deficiencies, and we'll find out probably within a month or so what they're going to come to exactly. But we got a price around 20,000 put in for that. Palmerston James Street, Main to John, 143,000 we put down for James Street on that section. And that's it for your water.
Can I just ask this, excuse me, I've gone blank, the, water meters for Palmerston are all in now.
There's a few left, but they're very few, like, they're almost all in.
And are we gathering
We're,
information from them?
yep, and we're picking those up on this round to have those installed. We put a little bit more pressure on them to get them
But are
in.
we gathering information from the ones that we do have in?
Not as quickly as I hope. I'm putting pressure on them. I hope by like April, May, like we've got some very preliminary readings, but not enough that I can go forward and do it. But I think that's gonna take some time, so I'm hoping by late spring at the latest, we'll have some good information, because that 270 cubic meters, we gotta see, is that realistic, or what is the actual consumption? Plus, all this asset investment in that too, that'll help them revise the forecast going forward too, and the reserve balances
And
too.
then, if Clifford and Harrison go in next year,
Yeah.
we have data by the end of next year starting to collect?
I'm hoping, because they're gonna start, I think, mid-late April? You know, we're gonna have another one, so, Palmerston was relatively painless, so if they get it in by midsummer, say, then by the fall we'll have that
So
data.
we're looking into 2016 before rates
Well,
actually.
15, I'm hoping, because if we get some data in this fall, then we should be able to move it by then, yeah.
That was the plan, I think, to have 15.
15?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Bridge, what is this utility truck? It shows up in 3 different budgets, and it's a total of $65,000.
That's
What
sh-
type of truck is it?
A 250 pickup truck,
And $65,000?
55.
55,000.
That's NOV.
There's two 20s and a 25. That adds up to 65.
Is there 20 in roads? I
Okay,
didn't look at the road one.
yeah.
Yeah, because you said, because I had it up to, I only had it 45, but then you said 10 in roads, right?
Yeah, it should be 55, I think.
Roads and street lighting, there's a utility truck for 20,000. We budgeted 40 last year.
Yes.
That's a different truck.
Yeah, this is a 250. This is not a
How many
150.
utility trucks do we need?
74 of them.
No, this is
Mistaken again?
15, I think. One of them should have been 15, I think. The 25, the 20 or 25 should have been a 15.
Should be 20, 20, and 15. right?
15, yeah,
So one of the 25 should have been 20.
plus tax, yeah. Take it out of tax.
Take it out of the tax one. Yeah, because when you said 55, because I couldn't hear why we had it in there twice. And then it's actually in 3 times. It's 65, that's not right.
Yeah.
So it is 55.
Yeah, we'll reduce that, because it shouldn't be 65. We'll see if we can't take that out of the roads budget and take that off the tax rate if possible.
Good.
And just an added, the question about how many do we need, that's the communities and Bloom truck, but we called it the utility truck. So it'll be used in different areas. And then as part of the roads needs study, remember we had a vehicle maintenance part of that too, and that will be coming to council next meeting, so. The belief is we need this vehicle to be replaced.
Well, if it's a community blooms truck, it's almost dead.
It is dead.
How
We
old
got a
is it?
price just,
It's
we,
like,
we had a price, I think it was over $7,000
to fix it.
to
And
fix
what,
it.
and it's how much, 15 years old?
Oh, at least,
At least that, yeah.
yeah, I think it was bought used.
It was bought used.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
And it hauls that water tank all around.
yeah, it can't be a 150. A 150 would
No.
handle the water on
No,
it.
it's- All right. But we got another 10 there.
Possibly.
I liking it.
Brian up there.
Yeah,
Add his roads thing
I had my tie, now it's gone.
there. Okay, that it for the,
I have,
yes, sorry, yes.
I just, in my scattered thoughts here, I kind of slipped back into roads, and when I was asking about whether you had a road study, do you also have a street study for our 3 communities?
That's all included with your road needs.
Yeah, it's all in the roads.
It's all in the roads, so
Yeah.
that's all part of the study?
That's all part of the same.
I was just thinking Jane Street, for one, is quite a mess in Palmerston, and you travel down it, you just bounce on it, and the way it was built years and years ago, you almost gotta hit bottom to go up into somebody's driveway, and it's almost like that. So, I don't know how good it is for moving snow, I wouldn't think it would be a great road for that, is there?
Yeah, I'd have to have a look in the
Ron,
study and find it.
if you want to grab, it's about this thick, but the way they did it was really well done, is they've identified the 10 most needed and make sure, can
Oh,
check.
have they?
Yeah, so
Okay.
it's easy to read, it's on an index system, and but we didn't give everybody one because it's this thick, but it's right there if you want to come in and look at it, or today even.
That's wonderful, I just,
Yeah.
Yep.
I just wondered whether we had that kind of back,
Yep.
and then I was just kind of flipping through my head.
Come in
what
anytime and we
roads
can
were
show you
bad
what
and-
they have,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's easy to read,
Okay.
yeah.
Just one project that we have in the budget that isn't on any of the summary sheet was in protection, which is on your capital list, not in the summary sheets. And it's $70,000? $60,000 for the floodplain mapping in Harrison. Remember, we started that project. I just wanted to assure you that that's in there. I had a conversation with Paul Ziegler yesterday. That work plan is coming back to you very shortly. You'll probably see that it's quite a bit more than that, but we hope to get started on that this year and finish it off next year. Unfortunately, I would really like to do it this year and get it done because it could well impact that whole Harrison Senior School development and what level that is all set at, but we'll see about the work plan when it comes back. If there's another way of streamlining the work plan a bit, getting the cost down and doing it this year, then hopefully council can make that decision at that time. So you should see that, I think, in February. Well, that is it, unless there's any changes or questions or...
Chris has got something here.
I just managed to find this article online.
Yeah.
The Wellington Advertiser?
Yeah.
So it was a report written by Chief,
Bothering them.
well, it was a report written by Chief Patton for Center
Yes, I
Wellington.
know it was, yeah.
So that he could send it to his council.
Yeah.
So his figures were wrong. If you base it on 9,300 people for Minto, our figures are $96 per person for fire.
Yeah.
If you subtract what we put in for reserves, so take out the reserve payments that we use for our equipment and that, it's actually $77 a person. So that's drastically different than his $134 that he has in there this year.
As compared to what?
That would put us below Puslinch and Erin
Yeah.
into whatever, fifth place, somewhere in there. But it would put us below those, which is pretty good considering, as we said, we have 3 stations in the smallest population in the county. So I'm quite proud of that and just want to make sure we clarify that. So that's what I've been
So,
diligently doing.
through you to yourself then, your worship, can you give him permission to maybe put a rebuttal into that, or talk to somebody to correct that situation?
Well, while I were here, I've been buzzed about 3 times. Mayor Lever from Pushlinch is buzzing me, and maybe we'll coordinate some kind of response. But I think, or at least figure it out. I
Well,
mean,
myself as a counselor and as
well, we need to
firefighter,
let somebody know.
Yeah, somebody needs to know, that's ridiculous.
And if the press would have been here today, I would have
Yeah.
talked.
Well, $135 and $74 is a huge difference, so.
I think the idea
So
that CO White has talked about, maybe if Mike Robinson wrote the report, maybe we can send him some updated information, or whatever.
Yeah, we can look into that, but he just took the stats that,
Yeah.
Fire Chief Patton sent to, his council.
Oh, yeah, no, it was
So-
a report to council for his budget.
But it was erroneous in the fact that he never contacted any of his fellow fire chiefs to get information.
Yes,
so.
I'm sure there'll be an interesting next fire chief meeting.
There's been an email sent, so.
Next Thursday we have a.
But I
Your
just
worship?
wanted everybody here to be aware of it, because what's gonna happen is you're gonna hear it in the coffee
Oh,
shop. People are gonna come at you.
Stay out of the coffee shop.
Yeah, stay out of the coffee shop.
Your worship?
They're gonna be wanting it, yes.
I think, follow up on what Councillor Hembley has said, I don't think this should be contact such and such and ask him to clarify it. I think we should prepare a press release and send it to him and ask him to publish it. I don't think we can go and just say, would you clarify? I think we have to prepare it, send it in, and ask him to publish
Yeah,
it.
and also put at the top of the letterhead is true facts or true numbers.
Well, yeah, we'll get it out there for some way. I mean,
No,
I
I'm
think
adamant
that's,
about that.
well, there's ways to deal with the media. And I want to get the right facts out there, and we're not alone on this. I'd like to talk to Dennis and a few other ones, because we weren't the only ones that were misquoted. Erin was misquoted. I think Bushnell was misquoted on the numbers. And it goes back to what I think Bill was saying. Sometimes you use the wrong sources, right? And you know, I would be really, I'm sure you're gonna talk about this at the Chiefs thing, and I think, Mr. Patton should probably apologize to everybody out there, especially to you guys, because
Yeah.
he shouldn't be using figures that he can't verify.
We'll worry about that on our end and take
Yeah.
care of our
I
own
think our
internal.
But I'll get it, I wanna get it out there.
People are
Can you
more
leave it
now.
with me, though? I mean, I would either do one way. I think we gotta get the right message out there. I don't-
We'll make sure my goal is to make sure that you as.
No, that's
as
what I
our
want.
boss
Today, I
know
wanted you
the
guys to
truth,
know
so.
that, because in case you get it when you walk out this door, right?
Maybe what we could do, we could tread lightly with it a bit, and maybe we should, since we don't have press here, we probably, it would be a wise thing to do is do a highlighted press release of our total budget system and where we're at today, that we've had this meeting, and I'm sure the press would pick up on part, I think we have to. I think we should. I mean, they had the opportunity, we can do a press release on how we're doing in our budget and send that to them. I think it's important for our public to know that.
We have a council meeting coming up
On the third,
on the 3rd, which is next week. We could put
or 2 weeks.
or 2 weeks, but we could put a report on there for
That's what I
sure.
thought.
Just clarifying it, that'll get it in our media here. And what that gives us time to do is make, as the chief said, get the actual figures from the chiefs themselves, so we're comparing apples to apples, because we don't want to get in the same boat
That's
and
right.
pull our capital out and our other things, whereas, and not do it for them. So, and really, I more care about our service, and I appreciate how you
Yeah.
dealt with it today, because you recognize the good things we do here. But it is important we get that information out, so it's not misconstrued in the coffee shops. And I think the chief will take care of it from his end with an email fairly quickly, likely, and in their meetings. So I take it to heart council's direction that we need to get the right information out there. It could be a fairly detailed explanation, and you don't want to go off with half that information just yet, but we will get it corrected for sure.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I would make sure we get it corrected, Ron. Correct. And I guess, now, to your question, Ron, about, and I just go back to what we've done in other years. Do we do a press release from this one, or do we wait till February 3rd and
At
do
the
a
end of it,
report?
we do for sure.
At February 3rd, I think we can sort of
I
say.
just thinking, the only reason I was saying
Oh,
that.
because of this, all this,
Yeah,
other- yeah, let's keep it
absolutely.
separate,
Yeah.
and we'll go from
I
there.
can deal with that.
Yeah, okay.
Before we go, I thought Gordon had some figures about average tax
Yeah.
and all that stuff when you apply the assessment, or did we not want to get into that too much? But I think when you apply the assessment to a $190,000 home, basically where your budget is now, the increase would be on ours alone.
$25.97, yeah.
Could you be a little more accurate?
Yeah, no, as far as, yeah, roughly that. And that's the thing, there's a lot of unknowns, so we'll do the press release normally when we do the budget, which will be March, when we actually do that too. And as Bill says, a lot of these figures, yeah, I think the other chief maybe acted a bit too soon, but as I say, a figure that we get from MPAC, I don't believe it either. So both Porcelain and, well, actually, except for Senator Wellington, we all have small populations, and, you know, it's basic math here. You know, if you change your denominator, you're going to make a huge change there, and that's the way the public goes there. We're looking at a relatively modest increase anyway. A lot of it depends on what you say is an average house, so again, going back to public school arithmetic here, if you take your mean, which is like your average there, it's about 2.4. If you take your median, it's actually about 1.7. So, you know, you can do a lot with figures too, but whatever, it's a relatively modest increase at where we're at. Again, our risk factors are where are we really starting from, and some of these projects that we're projecting, we could get some unpleasant surprises. And the challenge going forward, big picture, I think all the departments are well-funded. Roads is scary because there just isn't enough dollars in the property tax base to pay for all these necessary ones. And Councillor Elliott, if you look in one of the appendices of the asset management plan, there's all the roads listed and there's a condition rating. And Mike and Brian have considered that, like take for example Wellington Street, it's a 4. There's others that are 5, so if they're below 6, they need done. The unfortunate part is we don't have the money to do all the 4s and 5s that need to be done, and, you know, and that's, you can only go into debt so much, you can only tap our reserves. Road reserves are tapped out. Development charges in Minto are pretty modest, so we come back to, we're the low guy in the totem pole. We need help from the province and the federal government.
I think one of the other things we talked about and what they're, Brian and Wayne and they're looking at too is, you know, say that road's a 4, but we find that really there's sewer and water work that has to be done before that, and you might take a road that's a 5 because you're gonna be doing, instead of, because you have to look at both things. And I think that's hopefully when they come back to us, Ron, and to the rest of the council, we have a real clear picture of where all our 10 top priorities are in all the areas, so we can go through our strategic plan and figure out where we're going with it, eh? So, I mean, that's a nice thing. I mean, from 2010 to now, with all this extra studies, the strategic plan being done, the road study, all the asset management program, we're gonna have a lot more tools in our tool chest to go forward and make some really tough decisions.
I just wanted to make a comment on behalf of the Finance Committee and on behalf of Council and thank Bill and Board and all of the department heads. I know this budget has been hard to come up with. I know you suffered.
Hey, you big baby.
And really, what you've given to Council here compared to what we received for financial information 4 years ago is night and day. And like you said, Mayor Bridge, we have a clear understanding of the finances in Minto, how they're being set, and the formats you've come up with, and the detail you've gone into. We really appreciate it, and thank you again.
I would just like to reiterate what Councillor Caldwell has said. My understanding is the budget process shouldn't be this easy for us as a council. Like, I think, I mean, we should be cutting and slashing, and we don't have to do that. You've already done that for us, and I really appreciate that because you have to take the heat and we don't. I know. That's okay. You sign the checks. Yeah. So that's important. The other thing is I really got a lot of, it made me feel very proud, this little graph here. We as a council came in 2010 with $8.5 million of debt and reserves of $7.5 million. Your forecast for 2014, and I'm sure it's pretty accurate or will be very close, our debt is just slightly over $6 million, and our reserves are still the same. So we've cut $2.5 million worth of debt, and we've kept our reserves the same. I think that's a major accomplishment, and we should be, all of us, not just council, probably more so staff, we should really be proud of that. And I am proud to be part of this council to make that improvement there.
This Taj Mahal's come a long way, hasn't it, my friend?
Yeah.
And I guess just to add to Terry, and unfortunately, you know, when you get called and people ask you questions over the phone, when I did say I was gonna run, I got a call from Shannon, and I quoted these figures, and I think I said Mary Lou and I did it, but I meant the whole council did it, by the way.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
But I you know, like, when they ask you that, I appreciate what this council's done. We all had a sole purpose. I think we started in 2010. A lot of people ran on it.
Well, I'm gonna put my name in for mayor right now.
There you go. You can, Rick. But the point is, through the staff and through the council, we've been able to work towards that goal, and I'm with you, Terry. This is a nice thing to be able to show people, because I think people need to know. And we still did $4 million worth of, $14 million worth of capital projects. It wasn't like we went and said, stop and let all the roads get worse and everything. We put $14 million in. So I think this council can be proud of what you've done the last 3 years going forward.
Being a member of the Olson Board, people have allowed me the opportunity to do that. We met last weekend and sitting in then and listening to the problems that the other communities have, and their problems are very, very similar to us. I'm pretty proud of what we can do, and how, when you hear the interaction they have with some of their staff and such like, we seem to have a pretty smooth dovetail situation where we can work together with our staff and come up with the best criteria I think I've ever seen as a council. I've been around councils for a lot of years. But I do want to reiterate that they do have very similar problems we do, and a lot of it's getting money from our partners, provincially and federally, and trying to get those grants. They are meeting and delegating with different and various department heads and ministers within the government, and with AMO. AMO sometimes tends to support the urban and to try and put forth our rural needs and small municipality needs. So again, I want to thank you guys for doing that. It helps when you can go to the provincial government when you're talking to those people and tell them that we can do it. We need help in other areas to keep our taxes down too.
And just to add that, Your Worship, council's only as good as the staff they have, and I think this council has hired some really good people, and the former council had hired some good people. Unfortunately, we had to let some people go, but like I said, we're only as good as the people that work for us, so I just want to thank you guys.
Okay.
So, Mayor Bridge, I think the agenda calls for a couple other resolutions that you have there. and-
I got committees in town council. Is that the next one? Or is it the one that, minutes of November? This is the one that confused me. That one we don't need, right? Hmm? Yeah, but that one, that's the one, here we are. I got it. Yeah, moved by Councillor Caldwell, second by Councillor Faulkner, the committee of the whole convenes in the town of Minto Council. All in favor? Carried. And then, moved by Councillor Faulkner, second by Councillor Caldwell, the council of town of Minto adjourns to meet again at the call of the mayor. All in favor? Thanks for a good meeting, guys.
Thank you.
It goes off.